Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Embodied Transformation podcast. I am absolutely delighted to have Michael Crowley with me today. So I have known Michael for about 7 months, and already he is one of my all-time favourite humans. And I'm really excited for him to come on and share some of his wisdom and his magic, and we will see what unfolds because we don't like to prep on this podcast. So Michael, hello and welcome. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Louise. Thanks for the kind words.
So, if we start back and you pick the point, you pick the choice point in your past. Do you want to share with people a little bit about your journey that got you to here?
Sure. Well, I guess it's worth saying I grew up in the United States. I was really into school. I made school a big priority. I emphasized science, and I trained not just in chemistry as an undergraduate, but then got really into the immune system. And the immune system, more even nowadays, is actually really a source of like understanding of human disease. And so I picked a good field to study in, but I never became a scientist professionally. And I felt that science kind of lacked for like more of the human component and like kind of teamwork that I was interested in. And so I moved into industry, and I worked in biotech as a project manager and doing some business development. And then I went to business school because I just did too much school for a long time. And with the business school, I was able to get the job of my dreams, which was the summer internship at Genentech, the first biotech company in the world that's based in San Francisco. And that was like a really heavily sought after role. And it was really as awesome as I thought it was going to be. And I even wrote a little story about my summer that got published in the University of Chicago Business School
Love
newspaper.
it.
So Louise, I'll have to share that with you sometime.
I want to see it.
And then those guys actually hired me back, and I worked there for 12 years before transitioning to the parent company that by that time had bought Genentech, which is Roche Pharmaceuticals, based where I live now in Basel, in Switzerland. And I worked then for 6 more years. All of these are these business development roles where we were sort of the personal shoppers of the scientists. We would like facilitate them having interactions with small biotech companies, and then if there was something to do to partner around, we would facilitate the negotiation of what the terms would be. We would work with attorneys, we would work with finance people, and we would put together these deals, and it was really awesome. And I still love it. I think you could tell I still love it.
Yeah, I
But
can see the passion.
I eventually though got into like such a senior kind of leadership role. I was running the new business development group here at Roche, and I was also on the leadership team of the R&D group. And became kind of administrative. And actually, like all I wanted to do was help the people that were in my like group. I had like 18 people that were working for me, but nobody wanted help from their boss. And so eventually I got kind of sad in that job and I left. And then I started more recently something I had dreamed of doing, but that I talked myself out of, which is to offer myself as a broad kind of support for biotech CEOs because that's such a difficult job. And I got a good start because I got some referrals from some people that I knew. And I've been doing that now almost 4 years. And I'm kind of bringing my bag of tricks from biotech and pharma, combining it with, I didn't mention, but I trained as a coach with New Ventures West in the last year I was in San Francisco in 2014, 15. And I've always, because I've like benefited so much personally from coaching, I've always I've gotten more and more interested in coaching. And in fact, now, in order to kind of do this technical work that I clearly am passionate about, I also really want a client to be interested in their development. and for there to be a real coaching component, because I think there's a lot of leverage there. And that's the sweet spot for me, as kind of one of these folks that's interested in not just advancing their business, but advancing their own kind of development too.
Amazing. I love that. So you have this, so and I remember, so I had a call with Michael in April, I think it was. No, I don't like to overfill myself before I meet people on calls. I'm like, I just meet them. And then after we had spoken, I went and looked at your LinkedIn profile. And we'll just say that Michael has done a lot of school at some impressive schools. And there's a lot of, I was like, oh, this could have been quite intimidating if I looked at this earlier.
I have to say, Louise, one thing I would say about that is like I love the challenge of like trying to get into some of these places and to like challenge myself there. And I had this idea that it would actually be like a proof point that I was like okay to
Mm,
exist and to do work. And in
yeah.
fact, ironically, I'm convinced it's a bit of a headwind that I face. Because if people look up my background, they think like, what kind of asshole wants to go to all these schools? Like, who am I going to be dealing with when I talk to this person? And so, like, I may be imagining this, but I actually think in the long run, I don't know whether it's been as much hindrance as help. Maybe a
Yeah, and
strange
maybe.
angle on it.
Yeah, and maybe, and we'll never know, right? Because we're never ever going to know how people experience us or what they think when they first land on our page. But for me, I was just like, fuck, this guy's really clever.
Ambitious.
But it's interesting, but it's interesting sometimes, isn't it? How maybe like some of the ways that we perceive ourselves underneath, we then expect other people to perceive us in the same way. And I don't know if that resonates for you in that example. Um, but I was just like, if I'm
The thing
honest.
is I don't even think about it until I'm very perceptive, and and very intuitive. Like I've started to accept this about myself because, again, ironically, I thought that the way that I should operate in the world is by knowing a lot of stuff. And that actually would be, again, a proof point and a reason to hire a person. But it turns out that I would argue the reason to hire me is because I'm really intuitive and perceptive. And I think I pick up a little bit of this tension sometimes where people are like, what's the deal with this guy? And the deal is I'm actually like just someone who wants to help. I'm actually a friendly person who's not a show off, but I feel that the resume is a bit of a show off. It's kind of embarrassing now, actually.
Yeah, but so let me tell you about, look, you can try this on, you can leave it or whatever else. But
Yes.
I'm like, it's almost like it's like you're the whole package, Michael. Because it's like genuinely nice guy, intuitive, perceptive, sensing, connected, fucking clever. So what it means is that you can then combine, right? I can help these people with their challenges and their high level strategy, and I can wrap my mind around it all. And I can also see some of maybe what they're not saying and these deeper layers and the things that is actually going to help them move the needle when their very intellectual brains are saying, I just need to X, Y, and Z. You're like, yeah, but also what about ABC?
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful combination, which I'm sure feels lovely to receive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, it does because actually I choose to do this. I mean, this is the dream job. Like I always wanted to do work that I would do even if they didn't pay me to do it, because I think I felt like I was sort of like, I had to do a thing, and it wasn't always like it didn't always perfectly suit me, but like this is as close to like I can't think of a better job than this, actually.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the science, you've got the coaching, and then just to feed the witness a little bit, at some point at some time, you have an experience around a particular kind of meditation that opens up, and I don't know if things were opened up already, but then that opens up as something else. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of two things actually. I was doing a seminar during the beginning of the COVID epidemic, and we were like on lockdown. It was June 2020, and I was actually doing this seminar with this group called the Insight Principles Group, And someone had told me that I worked with at Roche, you ought to check them out, do their training. And without getting too much into it, they encourage the way they work with people is they consult by bringing teams together that have tried to solve a particular business problem, failed to do it because it's so daunting, and they bring them into kind of a place of shared consciousness. And from that place of shared consciousness, they can actually get inspiration to solve the problem in a different way. And I mean, it sounds really cool, but it's actually kind of plugging into the same place of insight and inspiration that artists get like their books from and their music from. And when you're in the shower, you get the aha moment. That's kind of this thing. But like, I didn't know any of this. I was just taking a seminar and I'm kind of a goody two shoes. So I'm playing along when they did this exercise to try to demonstrate to you pure consciousness. And I'm like, well, I might as well play around. I mean, what's the harm? And strangely, I had a very profound experience, which I'm finally talking about it now, honestly, but I haven't talked about it too much in public because it's so bizarre. But they had you do this thing where you systematically imagined that you no longer could see, you could no longer hear, you couldn't touch, taste. The idea being that you're almost disembodying yourself, and then what's left? Who are you? And you would think there's no way this should do anything, but I had a very strong response. I kind of a sensation of like light, which is so stereotypical, and I don't really, it's so embarrassing. But afterward, I knew without a doubt that we are all connected in a very like fundamental shared way. I just knew it was true. And I so knew it was true that it had already rearranged me to understand what like the dominoes fell. I knew what the implications of that were. Like all of this drama I had with people that I was working with, or like things that I was struggling with, all of that was actually completely unnecessary. Like I didn't really need it and it wasn't really real. And I was so impacted that literally I cried through 2 hours of lunch with my daughter and my wife, but eventually it faded. Like I remember all of it, but like, and it did sort of set me up for the other thing that happened, which was 2 years later, I was just going through kind of like a rough patch, frustrated with like feeling like I didn't have tools to kind of manage like patterns of behavior that were being repeated. And I had actually had a discussion with a colleague who also trained at New Ventures West, who had heard me talking about a kind of meditation I had done where you imagine it's called sitting in the power, basically. And I didn't know what this was, but the where you basically kind of imagine receiving the light of the universe and like putting your light out there. And I had been complaining about regular meditation, regular being like breathe and sort of don't attach to your thoughts. And I said, this is bullshit. Like, I don't really want to do this exercise. It's not relaxing. I'm not really succeeding at it. And this sitting in the power felt like something. So my friend said, I got someone I want you to meet. Turned out, very long story, that in the very first meeting with this guy who turns out to be a bit of a master of Dzogchen, which is a part of a Tibetan Buddhism tradition. In the very first meeting, he actually did this empowerment called pointing out, where even though we were over Zoom like this, he was able to kind of lean into me and say, this is what your being, your consciousness, your awareness feels like. It's right here, it's right under your nose. And you can basically immediately connect in a durable way, unlike the previous. The previous experience was a connection of pure consciousness, which is not our human experience. That's a disembodied, it's almost a trauma, according to this guy, Rudy Bauer, that I worked with. This is our real experience, is that we can at any point feel into awareness, fundamental sort of connection to everything, We're in this like liminal space, this embodied consciousness. And there we can receive inspiration, we can process trauma, we can um, feel this is like the true human experience. You're in a liminal space between mind and pure consciousness. This is like where all kinds of good things happen. Good coaching can happen, big insights, trauma process, and you just feel better. You can even manage like the heat stroke in Europe that you get when there's no air conditioning and it's like 100 Fahrenheit in your apartment. We've used it for everything. My wife does it. And so it's very like catchy. I feel like I can do pointing out with others now because it's an ordinary thing. But anyway, Louise, a really long answer, but like I think this stuff's really important. And I would really love people to know it's out there because none of this, like it's extraordinary and ordinary at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you think about connecting that back into what you said before about being perceptive and intuitive, and also if you think about generally how society is conditioned, we're not conditioned to be connected to our consciousness or our intuition. Now, my views on this don't need to be your views on this, but I think a lot of that is intentional because actually we're much more productive members of society if and well behaved and conforming members of society if we are not connected to our consciousness and our intuition. But what I'm really, I mean, and feel free to actually, is there anything you want to say on that before I dive in with my next question?
Oh my God, no, I think I said a lot already.
Okay,
But feel free to
so
probe.
I'm coming. I'm here. So how did it, and I'm asking this, I'm gonna say, I'll give you a break from talking for a second. I'm asking this from my own experience, right? So I was raised as a Catholic, but age sort of 15, 16, put that down. So like God was, it was just no part of my world. It was no part of my experience. And then, I went to university, I did a law degree, I spent 10 years working in law, and just 0% of the time did I ever give any consideration whatsoever to anything other than really actually what was the next fire in front of me that I needed to fight. And so then when I started my personal development work, right, working through the burnout, making sense of lots of things, I actually had a really, really hard time grappling with my experience when spirituality started to become a part of my life. Like I spent years, like years, been like one foot in, one foot out. I'm not sure about this. This is weird. I remember like a few years later saying to my coach Danielle, I was like, "Oh, but when we first started working together, I was spiritually curious." And she went, "No, you weren't." She said, you were one of the most closed off people I have ever worked with, right?" And I think this is this can be one of these great internal conflicts we experience. And I think often there is this, not a divide, but it can feel challenging of like, is it science or is it spirituality? Now, and I would just love to hear your take on it. And then the last thing that I want to ask, but bearing in mind that I don't really know anything about this, but this is just what intuitively came to me as you were sharing, was
Hmm.
that liminal space that you talked about between the mind and consciousness. Is that like the quantum realm? Is it something else? Over to
I mean,
you.
I might answer it backwards. Like the thing is, you know, um, I've heard a lot more folks talking about kind of watching, frankly, too much Instagram. There are a lot of like quantum physics experts who don't have any training and they kind of throw these words around. I mean, one of the things that I would just encourage anyone that has any interest in this is like to realize that there's a profound simplicity to experiencing consciousness and just going into that place. I mean, the way that my teacher Rudy Bauer would say is, look, we suspend our mind. And already you go, well, I know that's not possible. That's the whole reason I was like suffering with this other crappy meditation. No, it's not true. You can suspend your mind, and you with desire and sort of a commitment to do it, you gently sort of set the mind aside and you feel into the like heart space, and that awareness is there. It works better. Two awarenesses are better than one. Like if you and I are doing it, if a group is doing it. We have a couple friends who are very like soulful people. When they come over to do like an awareness meditation at our place, it's very rich, very intense. You lose time, like in flow. If you're an artist or whatever, you lose like how was it 2 hours? A half hour meditation feels like it's over almost instantly. So I don't know about quantum. I mean, I am a scientist. I actually got some good grades in quantum mechanics. I can tell you like real quantum mechanics, but I would recommend not thinking about any of those things. We are embodied consciousness, and you can feel that, and it's available to you, and it enlightens you, and it makes you in Dzogchen, we talk about rigpa. You are like you are smarter because you are able to not just receive intelligence through the mind but through awareness. Then there's ma rigpa, which is this sort of like kind of place of stupidity, that inflexibility, that locked in cognition. That's a place of suffering, and it is actually not our true um, being. But as you say, that's a great place to control people, get them to work, get them to do what you want them to do. Even I think, unfortunately, religion has sort of like claimed this like very like um, this aspect of ourselves. When we meet with people in community and we get together, we feel that shared awareness. And then the church says, "You're welcome. We did that for you."
Mm. And now
But
you must do as we say.
you as a community did it for you. You want to go another place you can have that same experience as a beer garden in Munich. It's the same, and that's a church of sorts too. But that's us. We need to claim that. We can't let like churches and power figures claim that. So I feel really strongly about this. I think it's obvious.
I love it. I kind of agree. I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole, but well, we could, but maybe about, who was Jesus and what was he here to show us? And was he here really to show us? I'm going there. I feel like Jesus came here to show us what you've just explained, but then it just got bastardized by the
That's
church.
that's quite possible. And I actually think like genuine sort of leaders that are leading from a heart place and want good things for people, they're not claiming the awareness. And one of the things that I really, maybe I should send this podcast to Rudy because I love him. He's really been a key figure in my life. But I'm not part of his group anymore because I didn't want or wasn't able to attend every single one of the sessions, and I was kind of excommunicated in some ways. And and yet that's okay, right? Because he's doing a thing and he holds this group and he does it on his terms. And he never claims that it's because of him that we experience this thing. That is the most important part. Like, if he wants to, in his human container, say, I meet on these days and you got to come to like most of my sessions and like I'm going to talk and like I'll call on you. And he has a right to that, but he never claims awareness as, because of me, you can experience this. He hates that kind of thing. And so that kind of, and then the other thing that the other last thing to say about why experiencing your fundamental connection to consciousness is so important is it's an equalizer. So if you're walking around in the world because of your ego and your kind of mind telling you that you're less than, when you're in awareness, you know that you're equal to everyone. You just know it. Can't tell you, you just have to experience it. But what it means is when you've actually spent some time there, it's going to shift your behavior. If someone bumps into you kind of rudely on a train, or if someone's, doing something, you probably are not going to turn the other cheek. Doesn't mean go and like retaliate and like be out of proportion, but you stand up for yourself. You know that you're equal to other consciousness, and so it's a remedy for bad ideas that your ego has about you, which is one way to go about it.
Yeah, sounds like something the world could need and do with
Yes,
a bit more of
yes,
at this time in our humanity.
yes.
So that's amazing. And then can we go back to, because I know I asked you a many part question. how did this feel as a scientist when this stuff came through? Was it
Oh,
immediately
yeah.
just like, oh yeah, like this is fine, makes perfect sense, I feel it all, I'm connected, or like, yeah, how did you experience it?
So I do think this is like where I'm a bit of a unique figure, is that I do really have a deep knowledge of the science realm, and it was the only way I could survive in these very science forward jobs with working with scientists all the time. Some of my best friends are senior scientists still at Roche and in other places, but it's not the whole thing. It's an and thing, right? Like that's true in its realm. And then there's like what I think is really too bad is this materialism kind of thing, sometimes called scienceism or scientism, actually, where we're not allowed to say a thing is a real thing because we haven't explained with science what it is.
Mm,
I got a big
yes.
problem with that. Yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may be hard to do. Like it's like one of those things where I think, what was Einstein or whatever said, we're going to not solve a problem from like where we are. Like you have to but it's hard to get
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of consciousness, right? So it's pretty hard to look at consciousness. But there's some like folks that talk really eloquently. There's a Italian scientist whose name I'm forgetting, has some really interesting interviews where this guy invented the microprocessor chip actually, but he's also had awakening experiences akin to the one I described. And so he's been working on, and when that guy talks about quantum, he's the one you want to hear from because
He's the one I want to
he
listen
knows
to.
quantum computing, right? He knows what that is. Um, but I think it's just an and thing, Louise, right? They both exist, they both deserve regard. And it's really a problem if someone says to you, well, your subjective experience, I can't like measure it with a meter. We need to honor our subjective experience because that's where all the intuition comes from, which is some of the best like intelligence we can access in our life, making decisions, because you're always operating in uncertainty, except you can cheat a little by going into awareness and like being receptive to the nudges as you talk about.
Yeah, 100%. And I think often the the clinging to the what did you call it? Scientism, but clinging to the like that's bullshit because it hasn't been proven yet thing. I think it's also just a way that people create safety for themselves. Of like this thing feels too hard or it's too uncomfortable, or I like things that are tangible and I like things that I can control and I like things that I can physically see. So therefore everything else is bullshit. And anyone that believes in that stuff over there is an utter. Versus, can we just be open to all the things? And exactly, and our subjective experiences, which a lot of the time don't make cognitive sense.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, which was maybe in kind of the leading the witness kind of category, and I guess editorialize a little. I get frustrated with people that then want to like describe it in the absence of the scientific explanation. They're sort of like saying, well, let me tell you all about the Large Hadron Collider and like how that's been interfering with your life and now it isn't. Like, do you really know that to be true? Or you could say, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe it came through the field. And I guess that's the thing. In fairness, even there, I find myself on the like, I could probably be easily pushed back on and say, no, no, those people do have insights. I just don't have those insights myself. And I can't really wag a finger and say you're wrong, but I would always qualify and say, look, I've learned this in a non-traditional way. I don't know. You can see the scientist a little bit here.
Yeah, I can. And it's so partly why I'm asking this question is because my beloved husband, Nathaniel, is very much he would call himself a man of science, right? So if there's no evidence there, then it's not real. And and so say for example, so like I do a lot of work with the dream. Okay. And so some of the like the coaches and therapists that I have would say that they have had particular insights that like the rational mind would be like, this is bonkers. And they're like, but we know this to be true because it's come to us through the dream, right? So you could take your thing of like, well, it's come to them through awareness, so they have this information that otherwise wouldn't be available to us. And then, and I don't think that necessarily has a problem when it's those two specific people, but he is then like, you're so naive and susceptible and gullible that because essentially anyone could come along and say, I could say, Michael, it's come into my awareness that whatever, right? And I think, and that's what I mean. I think that's sometimes where the fear of things comes in, is like where there's no actual thing there. And like fundamentally, Nat's biggest fear is that someone is going to tell me that I should leave him. Because of whatever, and then I will. Like so we understand where it comes from, but I think it is really interesting how this stuff presents itself. Of like it can feel really scary and uncomfortable to connect into something else.
Well, I would also like to build on that. I would say that I'm kind of um, empathetic about that because I think if you're just in a mind space, you don't have a real gut reference point of what truth is through your own lens. I mean, there's a certain audacity to making yourself like the arbiter of truth. And yet, if you go into awareness and you let something sit with you, about the Large Hadron Collider or, some conspiracy theory or just something even less dramatic, you can decide for yourself whether you think it's true, whether it's like, I mean, I have the impression from things you and I have discussed or either that I've heard you say offline that like you're interested in like letting some of the woo-woo stuff hit you and decide like does it stick or not? Like I will
Yeah,
decide. I think I'm grounded enough to decide whether this informs me in my life. I think about it just like the best thing that happened with the among the many great things, but about the awareness of awareness is that like it just allows you to honor your subjective experience more. And it leads to like a richer life. Like you feel like kind of like you're in the middle of like something that's kind of an art, even as you're just doing ordinary things. Like you can be feeling extraordinary things when you're just connected into awareness, but you're just, sitting home on a Saturday night or something. It just makes life more colorful. And I think we need to be able to decide for ourselves like whether something is meaningful or not.
absolutely. And we definitely need to get you into the time alchemy community to run as a little session on this. I feel like we all need, I can't remember what you called it. I say we all need to be poked at, but what was it called? The pointing thing.
Well, the pointing out. So
Oh, the
there,
pointing out. Yeah.
yeah, there are two empowerments. One is pointing out where you point out the awareness in another person, and the other is this thing called tracho, which means cutting through, and it means that you can, with your like awareness and your intention and like desire, you can cut through obstructions and obfuscations in your life that are keeping you, whether it's people or bad ideas or you can cut through those. Very like exciting and empowering if you buy into it.
Yeah. I'm ready to buy into it. I will be in touch. So I was like, oh, I don't know how much I don't know what we'll have to talk about today, but yeah, we're not having a problem. So there's no like fancy tangent for this. Instagram videos.
Instagram
We're
videos.
going to start a new chapter of this podcast episode. So you have started doing some videos on Instagram, um, which has inspired the name of today's podcast, which is a darn good yap. Um, and I would love for you to share a little bit about that. And the reason why I want you to do that is a lot of people that come into my world or like consider coming to my world or speak to me, or just generally humans, right, can feel very uncomfortable around being visible, around showing up, around being their authentic self. Like oh, I think we all get that conditioning of like we should be a certain way, we should look a certain way, we should present a certain way, we need to show up a certain way. And so then it can be really, really hard when we feel that pull of well, no, I want to reconnect back to myself. I want to share more of myself. Like, I don't want to have to pretend anymore. I don't want to have to, whatever. Um, so yeah, discuss.
So, one of the things I guess I would say, like my understanding of like the life operating model now is that you do get these nudges and you can either listen to them and they'll push you in the right direction, or you can kind of ignore them. And I was getting nudges that to complement like my awareness meditation around like self-trust. Like, so the idea is to like ultimately dissolve the ego with awareness, right? The cage of the mind that tells you you can't do things, that you're not good enough. Um, you can work on that at the level of awareness and letting it metabolize the mind. But you can also, like, practically speaking, um kind of immunize yourself to yourself, through these yapping videos. Like, in the same way, if you have a grass allergy, I'm going to inject, this is where the immunologist comes in. I'm
I've
going
got a
to
grass allergy.
my daughter gets shots, right, of grass allergen that basically says, "Hey, look, immune system, this is perfectly safe. Don't react to grass." Most people are reacting to themselves, sound of themselves, the look of themselves. Yikes, right? And so these yapping videos are kind of a means to getting comfortable with yourself. And you can even sort of like dial up if you're doing just playful things and you're kind of like keeping it a little bit like outside of like what really matters to you at the heart level, you can kind of work your way in, which is one of the things that I feel like I've been doing. Like, I'm at the point where I need to like not just kind of wade into the water, but I need to like dunk myself and start like yapping the way I see you doing, Louise. And also like the guy who runs this, and there are many people that are good at doing this, but like not that many. I mean, there are not that many people that I think the idea is you get to the point where the person that I'm hearing from is the real person. There's no space between that. Like, there isn't any protection. There's like just me wanting to connect with you as exactly who I am, me not holding back. And I see that you do that. That was actually one of the things that really drew me in to working with you and sort of joining the certification program, because I was done with school. Um,
No, that's cool.
but it's never say never. But the yapping thing is a really, it is a builder of self-trust, and it is like you're honoring yourself because you're saying, I'm right here, deal with it, you know? And ideally, you don't even do it defiantly, right? You're just doing it because you've got that you're equal to everyone else. There's no reason you shouldn't be doing a video telling us what your unique insights are and like how you want to help as Louise, you would say, your unique magic. How and I'm convinced that that's a much better way. I don't social media for me, I don't manage it well because I find it sort of addictive, but I believe that it's a great way to put yourself out there like bait for like you say, the soul clients. And the more you are putting out there, the strongest representation of you, least gap between like who you are and what you're putting out there, the more you're going to find the people that you connect with. So, I mean, there's a lot wrong with social media, but this is one of the things that's right about it for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask this follow-up question because when you first started saying to me about yapping and me yapping, I thought that you were low level insulting me. I was like, why is he telling me
I
that I'm
think it's low
yapping?
key is the expression. Low key.
Low key insulting me, right? I was like, what's he saying? Why is he saying that I'm yapping? Because I didn't realize that yapping was actually this thing and this term.
Yeah.
So if anyone else is listening to this and been like, what do they mean yapping? Can you just like, can you share?
Well, so this is actually really a good question, because I saw I saw you and I saw some other people, including Justin Schumann, whose 90-day kind of posting thing I'm doing on Instagram. I saw you all and I can distinguish because I'm a human being connected in consciousness with you. I knew you were putting out there really, really close to who you are representation. It turns out that actually, no matter what someone is saying, if they actually are really like as close to who they are, it's super compelling. It's like the baby seeing the mother's face. For me, I sensed that there was something special about this thing. And to many people looking at it, you might just say, "Oh my God, another talking head satisfying themselves, posting their crazy stuff on Instagram." But I knew that that was something that was different, to really, really go for it and really speak authentically. And it turned out it was a thing, yapping videos. That's how I figured. But I actually saw it before I knew there was a name for it. And everyone else would be like, people have been talking on social media for a long time. But right now, I think there's so much hunger for for truth because there's so much bullshit out there
Hmm.
that listen to any yapper. It doesn't matter what they're talking about. If they're good at it, I really can count on one hand the number of people I've seen, and you feel them. You feel them, and I find that really like exciting, And so I'm trying to get there, but I'm not too like critical. I'm not wagging a finger. I think you have to really like work a little because you're also pulling out your truth. Like, sometimes people will say, "Hey, sometimes I know like what I mean because I talk about it and I arrive at an understanding." I think that talking about things to arrive at understandings is useful too. So it's really a self-interested, like self-benefiting thing. Ideally, you're really doing it for yourself, but then it starts to benefit other people too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like in a world where so much is like AI driven content, or so for me, so I mean, I've been doing videos on my social media probably for about five since the beginning, 5 or 6 years. But and for me, it's always been the antithesis to, because a lot of the time, so I started out basically doing most of my stuff on LinkedIn, and it was the antithesis to the people who were surprised and delighted about their latest award or their latest promotion.
And humbled. Don't forget they're humbled too.
Oh, humble, um, the humble brag. And it's and Michael, and we will put Michael's Instagram in the show notes. If anyone wants to go and watch Michael's videos, because they are brilliant. They are brilliant. And like some days I'm like, wait, because I try not to spend too much. Like, let's be clear, right? It's a dopamine addictive thing,
Oh, it's
right? So
bad.
we will all get lost in. I tend to get lost in stories. And sometimes, because like it's supposed to be quite helpful for the algorithm, if you can go on and like connect with, engage with posts, sometimes I've really noticed it on LinkedIn at the moment, but I sometimes open it and I'm scrolling down. I'm like, there's nothing I want to connect. I'm like, I'm not liking any of this shit.
Huh. Well, that's probably good for you though. The algorithm doesn't get you.
The algorithm doesn't have it.
You've confused the
Um,
algorithm.
um, but your videos are incredible. So you sort of briefly mentioned then about having joined the certification. So you've got a lot of school, a lot of qualifications, a lot of experience. You bridge this beautiful gap between, like, I'm going to call it science and spirituality. You might call it something different. And then you're also able to support people with like deep technical stuff. Like you said, like, those CEOs, those like senior leaders, they've got stuff that they're grappling with, and often they're grappling with it without people that around them that they can, um and so you have all of these incredible things, and then you discover my talking head on the internet. What was it that drew you to the certification? So Michael is one of 5 students in the first cohort of the embodied certification transformation. We're just taking the practitioner out. It was too long. I've noticed no one else says it either. I'm like, it was too long with all the words in. So yeah,
Don't
so what
forget the
was it that
trademark.
no, so the trademarks are the holistic awakening school
Okay. Yep.
and the embodied transformation method.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it.
So we're okay. We don't have to redo the trademarks. So what was it that drew you to the space, first of all?
Yeah, I mean the thing that actually you were articulating that really drew me in was the nervous system awareness like component, like how is your embodied experience, which could go as far as being embodied trauma, how does that actually unconsciously tether you to operating in a past way, in a like way that doesn't allow you to take action on like the conscious awareness of your new insights, like you're having like kind of coaching insights or therapy insights, or you like learn, oh yeah, I do this and here's probably why, and my mother like, and my dad, and
Hmm.
my church, and but like nothing changes.
Mm.
And I had seen this, like, I kind of was experiencing that with occasionally with clients too, when we were like able to go there, because of course we do a lot of technical. And so we don't always deep dive. And that in some ways that's I think something I'd like to offer more of. And even today, actually, Louise, in like my client call, I was actually calling out some of these voices, the inner critic, and I was saying, look, this don't be in a wrestling match with this thing. Hear it. It helped you. Like it helped you avoid catastrophe somewhere, probably maybe. And so like, just tell it, we got this. I'm in a risk-taking business. I'm a scientist, baby. I'm a CEO. I got this. But honor it. So I feel already like I'm more helpful to my clients because I'm bringing in this element of it's okay. We all have these voices, and they don't mean that what we're doing shouldn't be done. They just aren't with the program. They held our hands when we were younger and they took care of us. It's really like a sweet way to think about it. It makes it easier to like tell that inner critic that's like fucking so annoying to that, okay, thanks for helping me, and I hear you, and like, and this even, and then from there, kind of this notion of let's check in on where our nervous systems are at. I mean, are we overwhelmed and kind of withdrawn? Are we in a sweet spot of kind of activation so we can engage, but we can list like presence? Or, are we kind of like, do we need to really go too much and like in a manic way try to do too much and overwhelm a client with our help, you know. So that whole continuum and that being an element of working with a client, you very expertly articulated this. And I said, I want that. Like, I want to understand it the way she understands it. She's built it for herself. I believe it. And part of the reason, Louise, is that you were able to convey because you're so aligned with your truth. So I get it. I'm able to take it on and I don't have to go, well, I don't usually let myself be helped. And, maybe she's some shyster is like trying to like, I didn't have any of that. And it's been so far, we're, I don't know, maybe like the first quarter or almost the third, and like you not just the way you talk about it, but in the materials, the written materials, there's such a like thorough and yet accessible articulation of how to work with a client, better than I would say like really practical but thorough and inclusive. And so like I've really really liked it, and you're not paying me to say this, I'm paying you. um
Yeah. Yeah, one of the I remember when you started doing so Michael is talking about like the inner council work at the moment. So we're dealing with like parts work and the deeper layers of the psyche during initiation 3. And I don't think you're going to mind me sharing this, Michael, but Michael reached out when he'd started engaging with the initiation 3 workbook, and he was like, this should be essential reading at schools. Not because it's written for school children.
um,
Um, but it really was my intention with the workbooks of like, how do we set the scene and give the context and all the rest of it and give all of the information, but in a way that is manageable and easy to digest so that people can actually grapple with it. And then obviously we've got the calls where we can do more of that as well.
and importantly, the other bit is, I think you can see I enjoy working with you and the people that have the other, classmates, the other really, I would say, kind of peer group
Yeah,
all of
you're not
us.
really students, are you?
They're just people I love already. I mean, they're people I really feel like super like strongly connected with. Again, a little bit like it was meant to kind of like happen too, which, in the past I would have kind of like threw up a little in my mouth when someone said that, but just allow it, right? Like if it feels like right and, maybe it's just right and you're lucky, or maybe, you're following nudges, but I really like the group too. It's been, and the container feels supportive.
Yeah, and then just last question. I'm not asking for specifics here, but just a general thing. So one of the things that I have yapped about plenty is that the hill I am willing to die on about this is that we need to do our own work if we're going to facilitate it for other people. So how is, and if the answer is it's not, it's fine, we'll just cut it out. No, we won't. Uh, how is the certification for you? How is it also helping you to grapple with your stuff? I don't need specifics, but is it also meeting that promise that I put out there
Yeah,
at the start?
yeah. I mean, I think, one of the things that actually that I benefited from, so I think the benefits of like a framework, like how the nervous system activation, where are you? You like locate yourself, like you above the line, below the line. You've heard some of this in conscious leadership. Just like locating yourself and realizing that this is where you are. And then like, what do you want to do about it? Like, is it okay? Does it suit the discussion with a client? Does it suit like whatever it is that to me, like that's already really useful. It doesn't mean I've mastered my nervous system. I've like been magically by the Hogwarts School of Awakening, awakened leadership coaching, but but I do think that it's given me like really useful ways to kind of I think about even when I like go on a client phone call, um, or talk to a potential new client, like how do I want to show up and like what am I paying attention to? How do I ground myself before I get onto a call? Like and this isn't, I wouldn't say just for like coaches, like how effective you are, how present you are for something is based on your nervous system ultimately. It's not, again, it's like we worship at the like throne, the altar of the brain, but the nervous system will trump I think kind of like how you're thinking, it will really impact. And like, awareness is also really a very informative thing too. So it's not all about how smart you are and what you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what we're seeing in the group as well, or what I'm seeing in the group is how much you are all learning about yourselves through the process, which is, you know, a beautiful part of the process, to repeat the word.
Yeah, and I've no regrets.
So, Michael, if I was not me, but I was like a person out in the world listening to this podcast, I might be like, um, I'm really interested in this meditation consciousness stuff, and I'd like to know more about it. And or I could be a CEO listening to this and been like, I need a Michael in my world. So if people would like to come and find you, connect with you after this podcast for chit chats, conversation, to come and work with you and experience your magic. I think, right, without fully going into it today, anyone who has listened to this podcast will have experienced Michael's magic, right? So if anyone is listening to this and are like, where can I find this guy? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a profile on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and I think you said we'll put the connection to that below. And there is actually a two-pager on there that includes some testimonials from current and past clients, so you get a little flavor. But I really do think that I really want to do more posting there, kind of in the way that we were talking today, where that people can take my temperature and get to know me better. Because as you point out, like that kind of meeting and awareness, even if we're not talking about it, if we're really like focused on each other and we're kind of leaning into each other and we're trying to work on something together, we are meeting in awareness, we are impacting each other. And I'm sure we're doing that on this call. You don't have to actually deliberately say, let's lean in, let's point out. So I think I actually, the one last thing I would say is, in spite of, I think, a rich bag of tricks that I have to help people, I still think it's when we connect in awareness that we get our most insights. And that to me is like one of the key like levers in the work that I do with clients.
Amazing, thank you. So you can go and find Michael on LinkedIn. It might look like he's kind of quiet on there, and that's fine. But drop him a message, reach out. You can have a conversation. We'll also add his Instagram on, so if you want to go and see like the fun, playful side of Michael's 90-day yapping challenge video magic, you can. Michael, anything else that you would like to add as we come to the end? And apologies, we ran over and I didn't even ask if it was okay.
No, no, no. No, I appreciate being invited. It was a great discussion. I have to say, I haven't articulated so comprehensively my kind of experience with this consciousness stuff before, but it's like so like meaningful and helpful. And if it like inspires anyone to go looking for this, you don't need anything. You already have everything you need. So like I'm a bit of an evangelist for this, but you don't need anybody. You just need yourself.
But maybe someone to point you in the right direction at
So,
first.
some pointing out definitely helped me.
Yeah. All right, amazing. So that is us for today. And I will see you guys next time with, I think, another guest, but we will see. All right, thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks, Louise.